DreAllDay.com.
You are now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. That is, go get an energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques, all underneath the umbrella of one unifying philosophy that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is, we're getting into part 2 of this brief mini-series where our topic is, you heard yesterday's episode, lazy thought leader marketing mistakes. This is going to be part 2 of 2. Before we get into this, let me remind everybody of 2 things. Number 1, that I send out a daily motivation text and also a Monday motivation text. They come out daily and weekly, respectively. Guaranteed to have you focused, sharp, and on point to start your day or your week, respectively. All you have to do is text me to get into my text community. It is free to join. We'll tell you your options as soon as you get in. My number is 305-384-6894. If you don't get an immediate response from our bot when you text, that's because we still have some technical issues going on with that. But as soon as it's fixed, then everybody will be caught up and we'll make up for lost time for people who have been getting it before we started having issues. Secondly, Work on Your Game University. This is the place where I coach top 2% performers to perform at your highest level, do so consistently, and make more money in your business. But understand our coaching is not limited to just business stuff. Actually, I coach a lot of people on things that are way outside of the realm of business, because the type of people who I work with, what's happening at work affects what happens at home. What happens at home is affecting what's happening at work. So our coaching is much more holistic, is much more bespoke, and it is, of course, the end game is you want to do better in your business. That's usually the main reason people go looking for some help, because they want to do better at what they're doing in a tangible way. But we all understand that there are some intangibles that go into making the tangible work. So at Work on Your Game University, that is a place where you can have someone like me as your coach. Actually, you can have not someone like me, but you can actually have me as your coach. The only way to have me as your coach is in Work on Your Game University. You can find out more about what our program is, and the best way to find out exactly what we can do is to get on a call with us. We can talk to you about where you're at, where you want to go, what you feel like might be in your way. And if I believe we can help you, then we'll tell you exactly how it works, what it looks like, and how we get started. That is all at workonyourgameuniversity.com, where you can simply just click a button, schedule a time to get on a call with us free of charge. And what's going to happen is what I just told you. Find out where you're at, and we'll take it from there if we feel like we can help you. All right, so with that out of the way, let's get into the topic here today, which is, again, part 2 of 2 of our mini-series on the lazy thought leader marketing mistakes. So these are marketing mistakes specifically made by thought leaders, but even if you're not in the thought leader space, you'll probably hear that there are some mistakes in here that you are making as well, that even if you're not a thought leader. So just take this anyway, even if you are not in the coaching, speaking, consulting space. Point number 4 is that you have no calls to action in your messages. Let me be clear what a call to action is. A call to action is something that you are telling your reader, viewer, or listener to do to go further into your world as a result of having just consumed your message. So a call to action does not mean, and the reason I'm bringing that up is to help you understand. Call to action doesn't mean you get to the end of actually I was talking to a member of our university today, a coaching client, and we were looking at an article that this person had written. At the end of it, they had, here's some takeaway points. Takeaway number 1, takeaway number 2, takeaway number 3. Even though the takeaways were actually telling them things, hey, think like this, do this, next time this happens, do that. Those are actually actions that you can take, but that's not what I mean when I say a call to action. So a call to action is when I say, okay, now that you listened to this whole episode, you like what I said, all right, you know you want to have me as a coach, go to workonyourgameuniversity.com and come deeper into our world. So I'm not just giving you points. Like in this whole episode, I'm giving you calls to action. I'm telling you a bunch of things to do. But the call to action is me giving you a way to go deeper into my world, specifically deeper into my world. So go sign up for this, get this daily motivation text. Go get a free copy of my book. Go sign up for this course that I have. Come join our mastermind. Come have me as your coach. Those are things that go deeper into the world. Call to action is not just the points that you are giving in the content itself. Okay? So as a thought leader, your messages to your audience should always direct them to take an action to do something that, and I just told you what that action should be, something that takes them deeper into your world, especially when you're putting out content for free. Understand something, everyone. When we put out content for free, we're not doing it for our health. We're doing it because we want to move them deeper into our world. That doesn't mean you get a bunch of garbage content and then say, well, if you want the real stuff, you got to come deeper into my world. No, give them high level content like I do here on the show every day, but make sure you offer everyone a way to take the next step. Now, is everyone going to take the next step every time you say it? No, but you need to offer it so the people who are ready to take the next step can take the next step because you are making it available to them. So that's what a call to action means. Where can I take the next step in your world? Where can I take the next step in your business with the thing that you have going on? Again, especially if you're offering something for free. And even when you offer something for paid, there should be a next step. What's the next thing we can do after this? So as a thought leader, your message should always direct people. And this can apply to any type of direct marketing, even outside of thought leadership, as I said. So every email that I send, you read emails that come from me, you know that at the end of every email, I'm giving you some type of action to take. If you don't tell people what to do, ladies and gentlemen, they won't do the thing. Do not assume that people just know what they're supposed to do, quote unquote, and that they'll go do it. Because no, they don't know what they're supposed to do, number one. Number two, even when people do know what they're, quote unquote, supposed to do, they still don't do it. How many of you have some things in your life right now that you're supposed to do that you're not doing? Exactly. So do not assume that people know what to do or that they remember that you said it last time. And you have to tell people the same things over and over again because human beings are hard-headed, lazy, and we get inundated with messages from people all day, every day, emails, text messages, notifications, etc. So do not assume that people remember what they're supposed to do with you or that they remember to do it later on because they absolutely will not. They are not even going to remember it 5 seconds from when they get finished listening to you. Point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is lazy thought leader marketing mistakes. Number 5. Point number 5, not number 2. So I picked up at number 4 yesterday, and now we're at point number 5. This is a 2-part series. Part 1 was yesterday. Number 5 is copying blindly. Now, there is a value to modeling what someone else does if they're doing something that works and could work for you. This one has become a big issue these days simply because there's so many people out there projecting their success and telling you about it that it becomes very enticing to simply copy what those people are doing because you want the same outcomes that they are presenting themselves as having. So someone's telling you, hey, look at all this money that I made, and it looks like it's working to get people's attention. Then you may say, well, maybe I'll start telling people all the money I made, and maybe it'll work for me the exact same way. This is what's enticing because it looks like it may be working for them. And it's not that everybody is lying because there are a lot of people who I know personally who are in the marketing space and they do a whole lot of what I just told you, a whole lot of what we call attraction marketing. They're basically showing off all the spoils of their success. And by showing off the spoils of their success, it appears that they are drawing more people into their world by showing off their spoils. So I got this plaque, I got this money, I got this check, I got this car, I got this house, I went on this vacation, etc. This stuff has been going on for over a decade. It's not new. But the reason it has lasted because it does get people's attention. Now, whether it gets them to actually do what you want them to do is a different question. But does it get people's attention? Oh, it absolutely gets people's attention. If I wanted to get in that game, I can get a whole lot of people's attention in a relatively short period of time. However, that is not the whole story. So some people who are doing this attraction marketing thing are fronting, meaning they're just showing off things that they're not really doing or they don't really have. Yes, that happens. And then some of them are not. They're showing off things that they do really have. And it is real what they're showing. But whether they are telling the truth or not is not as important as what I'm about to say. You had to be disciplined enough to not go chasing after every single thing that you see, nor copying everything somebody else does just because you see them doing it and it appears that it's working for them. Even if it is working for them, doesn't mean it's going to work for you the exact same way. Do you have their energy? Do you have their style? Do you carry yourself the same way? Are you perceived by your audience the same way they are perceived by their audience? So it's a different approach for each person because it has to work for you. You taking what another person does may not work for you simply because you don't have their same style. People don't see you the same way they see them. Same way they can't take the stuff that you do and just copy it and do it because their audience doesn't look at them the same way that your audience looks at you. So you can't just go copy what another person does just because they did it. Now you can take the strategy, you can take the framework of what another person does, and you can use that, but you shouldn't just take every tactic that another person does and go copy it because again, it may blow up in your face and not work the way that you thought it would. So you got to figure out how it could work for you and how specifically you would apply it if so. And again, your application and another person's application are not always going to be the same. Now, this is a strategic process. Okay. So it's not something that you just go and do without forethought. See, when you're doing something, what's the word I'm looking for? When you're behaving tactically, that means you're just copying an action that you saw another person do, or they did that and that looked like it worked, so I want to get that outcome, so I'm going to do the same thing that they did. That's copying a tactic. But what you want to do instead is you need to plan out strategically. Strategically is thinking about a plan of action on what exactly is this person doing on a strategic level, not a tactical level, because there are three levels of thinking here. There's principles, there's strategies, and there's tactics. Principles is the hard and tried and true, etched in stone thing that never changes. Strategy is what's the way that we're going to execute on the principle, and the tactic is what are the actions that we can take in the process of executing on the strategy. So, for example, if you have a principle of being in shape, your strategy might be I'm going to be a swimmer, and the tactic is I'm going to go to the swimming facility 3 times a week. Now, your tactic can change from 3 times a week to twice a week, from twice a week to 7 days a week. The tactic is just how many times you're going to go to the pool, but the strategy is I'm going to the pool. And you can change the strategy, and instead of I'm going to swim to be in shape, you know what, I'm going to ride my bike to be in shape, or no, I'm gonna go play basketball to be in shape, or you know what, I'm gonna go join a CrossFit gym to be in shape. See, the strategy could be any one of those, and then the tactic is what are you gonna do once you get there? Everybody following here? And the principle is I'm gonna be in shape. So principles, strategies, and tactics. Make sure you're not just copying another person's tactics without understanding the strategy that is governing those tactics. And often, what you'll find if you dig deep enough, you'll find that a lot of people are executing certain things. You notice certain tactics other people are using, and they don't even have a strategy. They don't even have a strategy. They're just doing stuff. And maybe they're good at it, and maybe they're not. But do not get lost in the matrix of copying other people's tactics, especially if you don't understand their strategy, and especially if you don't even know if they have a strategy. Sometimes people don't even have a strategy. Point number 6. We're talking here today about the lazy marketing mistakes that thought leaders make. This is part 2 of a 2-part mini series. Number 6, not telling enough stories. This is a big one. When you're in the thought leadership space, and again, thought leadership is when you are selling your intellectual property. You are showing people that you are someone that they should listen to, follow, and follow the direction of, because you know a lot on a certain subject. You are an expert on this subject. You really know your stuff, and people are really connecting to you. Now, they could eventually connect to your company, but they start by connecting to you. They're connecting to you because you're letting them know that, hey, not only do I have this information, but let me tell you why I got the information, how I got it, what brought me to this. All of those things are what connects people to you. Remember how I talked a few days ago about why emotional connection still matters, because an intellectual, logical connection can bring somebody in, but it's not going to keep them around that long, because knowledge and information is pretty easy to find. You don't need to go to any one person to get it. Now, you can pretty much find it anywhere online these days, and it's getting easier and easier to find it. The emotional connection, though, is the connection through story. If you tell someone else your story as to why you do a thing, that makes more of a connection than just the information itself. For example, when I first started publishing online, I was making basketball content for basketball players. And the reason that it connected with an audience as deeply as it did, and why some of the people from those days are still in my audience to this day, is not because I was the best basketball player they had ever seen. There are plenty of players who were better than me, whether you want to say subjectively or objectively, looking at stats, career, resume, et cetera, et cetera. What was the reason why those people connected with me? They connected with me because they found out about the story. They found out about my background. They saw my style of delivery. Those are the things that were the glue that made the information make sense. See, the drills, and here's how you dribble, and here's how you do a crossover, and here's how you make 3-pointers. Well, I wasn't the only person in the world who could teach that. I was one of the first doing it. As far as putting it on the internet, I was the first doing it. But I'm not the only one to this day. There are plenty of people doing it out there to this day. It's stuff that I was doing 20 years ago. The thing that allows people to stay connected to me is once I told my story and they found out, oh, this guy only played 1 year of high school ball, and I wasn't making my high school team either. This guy walked on to play in college. I want to walk on and play in college too. This guy played pro ball, even though he had to hustle his way in. I want to hustle my way into pro ball too. See, all of those things, those connections are what connect them to me. It's not the information itself, because they get the information in 100 different places, but the story they can only get in one place. So the story is what separates you when you're a thought leader, is not the information that separates you. When you go give a speech, and I'm a person who works as a speaker, and speaking is part of the thought leadership space, is the stories that people remember from your speech. It's not the talking points. You give all your talking points. Each person in that audience might remember 1, maybe 2 of your talking points, i.e. information. They might remember 1 or 2 pieces of information. They will remember much more of the stories or story. People recall story much more strongly than they recall information. You can hear a story one time and remember it. Information we got to hear over and over and over again before we get it. So as a thought leader, you must tell stories. If you don't tell enough stories in your thought leadership work, you won't become an effective thought leader, because what makes you an effective thought leader is not that you are smarter than everyone else or that you have information that no one else has access to, even though those may be true. The reason that you create traction as a thought leader is because people connect with you, the person, and the stories that you tell. So for example, I was just recording on a show just the other day with my friend Desiree. I forget the name of her show. It didn't come out yet, but we just recorded it. And she was asking me, do you ever get anyone telling you that you remind them of David Goggins? That's what Desiree said to me. And I said, yes, I do. You know, black guy, tall, slender, low body fat, bald head. And we both talk on some form of motivation, inspiration, etc. David Goggins is much more on the motivational rah-rah side than I am, but I understand the comparisons, and we physically, people can connect us to each other. I've had people say it when I'm in my workout gear. I've had people say it even when I'm in a suit. Like, yo, anybody tell you like David Goggins? Yes, I get people saying it. And I'm bringing up David Goggins to say this. What is the main thing that you get from the guy? What's the main thing, not that you get from him, what makes you connect with the guy? What makes people connect with the guy is the story. It's not the information. Yes, he has information, and I'm sure his information is great. I don't really follow a lot of motivational, inspirational type of guys, but what gives him the audience that he has, and what makes people connect with him is the story. And when he put his book out there, which became a very popular book, still popular to this day, it's called Can't Hurt Me, is the fact that the book is about his story. He's telling his story in the book. Yes, he's motivating and inspiring you in the process, but it's his story that allows you to connect with him. And this applies to every thought leader. Name a thought leader. What connects you to them is the story. What connects you to Oprah Winfrey? The story. What connects you to Barack Obama? The story. What connects you to Donald Trump? The story. Anybody you're a fan of who's in the thought leadership space, anyone whose the main thing that they give you is not something tangible that you hold in your hands, but it's a feeling, it's an energy, it's information. Those are the storytellers. You have to tell a story. When there's a compelling story, you can get people to connect with you. So understand that in thought leadership space, your information is not a differentiating factor. In the thought leadership space, your information is not a differentiating factor. Your information is not that great. Nobody's information is that great. And anyway, once you put your information out there, now it's out there. People don't need you, but the information is already on your blog. I don't need to talk to you. So while you may be a very smart person and you know a lot about your subject, information can be easily found. Social media, a few blog posts, listen to your podcast, Google, etc. People need to connect with you personally when you're in the thought leadership space. And what brings them into you personally is not the fact that you have information, because again, they can just buy all your books and get all your information. Okay. You want to bring them into the deeper water, which leads them to your higher value offerings. And you do this by making yourself unique. What makes you unique is not your knowledge or information. All right? You are not separating yourself from the crowd with your intellect. That's not to say you don't have any, but that's not going to separate you from the crowd. And again, people don't get connected to information anyway. Information does not connect the person to you. Information can inform someone and they can appreciate it, but it's not going to keep them around. You want to keep people around in your world, do not give them just information. You need to tell them a story. People connect to story. They connect to narrative. Stories are proprietary. They can't be copied by Google or ChatGPT. They can copy your information. They can't copy your story. When you're in the thought leadership space, you want to tell stories all the time. If you listen to this show, often I'm telling you stories. You read my articles, often I'm telling you stories. You follow the content that I put out, 80% of the time, I'm telling you a story. Why? Because nobody else has the stories that I got. Other people can have the information. Nobody has the stories, because the stories come from my own personal experiences. So nobody can have the stories. It's impossible. I can't be beat in my stories. You can beat me in information. You can't beat me in a story. And every other thought leader out there, I can't beat them in their story, because they have their background and who they are and why they do what they do, and I got mine. So the people who connect with that guy or that girl's story, they're going to go over there, and people who connect with me and my reasons, they're going to come over here. That's how it works. It doesn't mean you can't connect with more than one person. But the point is, the story is what allows people to really come deeper in with you. That's the emotional connection. Story connects people emotionally. It anchors people rather, and touches them on the emotional level. Information never does that. Somebody can have the same ideas or points when it comes to your information. They could be talking about the same thing that you're talking about. What separates you from them? What's the difference? The stories. You got your reasons for talking about it. They have their reasons for talking about it. I talk about disciplining confidence and mental toughness because I was an athlete at the professional level. And to get there, I needed to use those tools to give myself an opportunity. I had to use those tools to kind of gather myself and fight back when things weren't working the way that I wanted them to work. Long story short. Now, other people talk about discipline, confidence, and mental toughness for completely different reasons. We came to the same place, but they got there for different reasons. And if you connect with my reasons, you'll be over here. You connect with their reasons, you'll be over there. Maybe you're in both places, depending on how you feel that day and what you need. You may say, all right, I'm going to listen to Dre today because I need his approach. But tomorrow I'm going to go listen to Mr. X and Mrs. Y because I need their approach. The stories are what differentiate us. You need them and you need to use them. And you need to get good at telling them and never stop telling them. If you're in the thought leadership space, tell story after story after story, and oh yeah, tell the same story over and over again. Yes, keep telling the same story. I told stories as to why I do what I do and things that led to certain situations in my life. I've told those stories hundreds of times, and I'm going to keep telling them. And nobody's ever came to me and said, Dre, you keep telling the same story. I'm bored. Nobody's ever said that. Nobody will ever say that to you. Why? Because, first of all, people didn't hear it every time you said it. Only you heard it every time you said it. So even though I told the same story hundreds of times, none of you has heard the story hundreds of times. Only I have heard it hundreds of times because I was there every time it happened. You were not. I told stories at private events that you all who are listening to this weren't in that room. And I've told stories on this show that people at that private event didn't hear. Keep telling your story over and over again. You want to have as many stories as possible and just keep using them. And your story doesn't just have to be yours. You can tell other people's stories and frame it as to why it matters to you. Just explain, why does it matter to you? But you need to have the stories. That's the whole point. Stories make sense of the information. Everybody follow me? Good. Let's recap today's class. This is part 2 of 2. Lazy thought leader marketing mistakes. Number 4, no calls to action in your messages. Always give people a step to take to go deeper into your world. Number 5, copying blindly. Do not just copy what another person does by tactic. You need to understand the strategy that is governing those tactics, if there even is one. And number 6, not telling enough stories. This is a big mistake that a thought leader makes. You actually can't really establish yourself in the thought leadership space if you're not telling stories, because what will separate you from the next person who's talking about the same subject as you with the same information? Nothing. The story is what separates you. So you have to tell your story. You need to hone your story. You need to dig into yourself and realize how many stories you actually have. And you need to use them judiciously and expeditiously. With all that said, make sure you text me, see in my community. My number is 305-384-6894. And Work on Your Game University. You're in the thought leadership space, and you would like me to help you and guide you into getting yourself established in that space so you can put yourself out there, get your name known, get yourself seen, heard, and known so you can actually generate business in the thought leadership space, whether you're an author, coach, consultant, speaker, course creator, webinar recorder, anything in that realm. Go to workonyourgameuniversity.com and see what we're doing in our program, schedule a time to get on a call with us. Work on your game. Dre, all